Imagine this: a music mogul, once celebrated for his chart-topping hits and business acumen, now stands trial for some of the most serious criminal allegations in modern celebrity history. Over his head looms not only the future of his fortune, but also the slender, unpredictable thread of a possible presidential pardon. And at the center of this storm, Sean Diddy Combs, a man whose empire, legacy, and freedom all hang in the balance. But just how much does justice depend on the law, and how much on the complex, sometimes personal calculations within the White House? It's a story as wild as any Hollywood thriller: millions at stake, reputations in tatters, and the stroke of a presidential pen that could rewrite everything. Some call it a crisis of justice, others a circus of celebrity and power. But one question remains: who really holds the keys when America's most powerful office gets involved with justice? Let's pull back the curtain and examine how the fate of Sean Diddy Combs became entangled with the power politics of presidential pardons and the fierce debate that's erupting across the country. What happens when money, fame, and justice collide on the world's biggest stage? To understand just how we got here, we need to look at the extraordinary, sometimes controversial power of presidential pardons in the United States. Rooted in Article 2 of the Constitution, the president wields sweeping authority to forgive federal crimes. The logic? A safety valve for harsh sentences and miscarriages of justice. But while the pardon power is designed as a remedy for the system's mistakes, it is often operated in the murky waters of backroom deals, personal relationships, and raw political calculation. It's the ultimate executive privilege, unchecked by Congress, untethered by precedent. The only real constraint? Public opinion, and perhaps history's judgment. The history of U.S. pardons is littered with controversy. In 1974, President Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon, igniting public outrage and setting off debates about accountability at the highest levels. Fast forward to modern times, and President Donald Trump's term became a parade of headline-grabbing pardons. His political allies, celebrity rappers, reality TV stars, even criminal kingpins. Critics called it cronyism. Defenders called it compassion. But either way, the message was clear. In America, justice has a back door, and sometimes you just need the right key. As legal scholar Lisa Bonner notes, the power of the pardon is nearly absolute, but that makes it extremely vulnerable to abuse. The public needs to ask, what message does each pardon send? Presidential pardons apply only to federal offenses. State charges are another fortress entirely. The formal process requires a petition to the Office of the Pardon Attorney, which the Department of Justice reviews before sending a recommendation to the White House. The unwritten rule? A 5-year waiting period after conviction before an application is considered. But this is often bypassed for high-profile or politically expedient cases. When the president decides, the clock, and sometimes the rules, stop. Into this tempest stepped Sean Combs, a man who, for decades, seemed untouchable. With a net worth once estimated at $740 million, Diddy built an empire spanning music, fashion, and spirits. His influence didn't just shape culture, it made him a fixture on the covers of Forbes and Billboard. A self-made billionaire, a media celebrity, and, to many, a symbol of what hustle and ambition can achieve in America. But the empire began to crack in late 2023 as a cascade of lawsuits emerged, most notably from his former partner, Cassandra Ventura, known to fans as Cassie. Her lawsuit, filed in November, detailed shocking allegations of sexual assault, trafficking, and years of manipulation. The effect was electric. Within weeks, more than 70 lawsuits followed, painting a portrait of abuse and excess that was impossible to ignore. By September 2024, Combs was arrested on federal charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitution. The trial, which began in May 2025, promises to be a crucible for not just Combs, but for the broader question of accountability among the rich and famous. With proceedings expected to stretch through the summer, the world is watching, waiting for either vindication or the fall from grace. The scale of this legal firestorm is unprecedented. According to civil rights attorney Adante Pointer, Diddy's legal tab could top $10 million due to the severity of potential punishment and complexity of the case. In fact, criminal defense attorney John Day says, "This is literally a money-is-no-object defense." Combs' elite team, boasting lawyers like Brian Steele, are rumored to be charging $1 million retainers. When all is said and done, his defense could top $15 million, and that fortune is shrinking fast. Forbes puts Diddy's net worth at around $400 million now, down almost half within 5 years. Lost deals, fractured partnerships, and the chill of mainstream brands have all taken their toll. In the court of public opinion, the verdict is also shifting. For some, Diddy is a victim of a vindictive smear campaign. For others, he is the face of an industry that has protected its own for far too long. Then there's the elephant in the room, the possibility of a presidential pardon. In theory, only convictions at the federal level are eligible, and Diddy's charges fall squarely in that zone. But the process is more political than legal. The question is not just whether he qualifies, but whether he has the support, the clout, or the connections to convince the president to sign that life-altering document. Enter Donald Trump, never a stranger to controversy, and no stranger to leveraging the pardon power for maximum political impact. In the waning days of his presidency, Trump pardoned everyone from rappers like Lil Wayne and Kodak Black to political allies such as Roger Stone and Michael Flynn. Each decision sent shockwaves through media, politics, and the legal community. With Trump now a private citizen considering another run, and with his finger still on the pulse of celebrity culture, speculation swirls. Could Diddy's name be next? But there's a twist. 50 Cent, a rapper whose own legacy is intertwined with Diddy's for better or worse, took to Instagram to weigh in. He warned Trump not to forget Diddy's past disrespect, hinting that personal relationships and old grudges could tip the scales. Donald doesn't take well to disrespect and doesn't forget who chooses to go against him, 50 Cent posted. While working tirelessly to make America great again, there is no room for distraction. The implication? That one man's personal dislike could derail another's shot at the ultimate get-out-of-jail card. The internet erupted. Some followers called 50 Cent a Hall of Fame hater, accusing him of sabotaging a possible pardon out of spite or rivalry. Others were stunned by the very idea that personal feuds could influence decisions of justice at the highest level. Bro, the fact he's considering pardoning Diddy should show people how unqualified he is, wrote one user. Reality star Claudia Jordan called Trump the most ghetto, unserious president ever, mocking the idea of reality TV logic dictating justice. Meanwhile, legal analysts raised alarms about the precedent. Lisa Bonner, a prominent legal expert, commented, "It's highly unlikely Diddy will testify in his own trial. Too risky, too much to lose. But a pardon? That's a wild card, and it's outside the courtroom." Trump himself has played coy, telling reporters he'd look at the facts, and that dislike or disapproval wouldn't sway his decision, unless there was proven mistreatment. But as history has shown, the office of the president is hardly immune to the whims of personality and loyalty. After all, Alice Marie Johnson, a grandmother serving life for a nonviolent drug offense, received a Trump pardon after Kim Kardashian lobbied on her behalf. When Kanye West asked for Larry Hoover's release, arguing in a surreal Oval Office meeting about infinite universes and cosmic destinies, the message was clear. Star power and social capital matter as much as legal arguments. The conversation about Diddy's future is no longer just about evidence and guilt. It's about the power of money, the influence of celebrity relationships, and the unpredictable calculus of presidential mercy. Critics warn that a pardon could undermine faith in the justice system. Supporters argue that the system itself is already flawed, especially for those who can afford armies of lawyers and media strategists. Civil rights attorney Adante Pointer summed it up. It's the ultimate test of whether justice is truly blind. But there are complications. A presidential pardon does not erase a conviction. It simply restores certain civil rights. It is also only available for federal crimes, meaning if state authorities pursue similar charges, Diddy's legal jeopardy may not end with a federal pardon. And then there's the formal process. Typically, the Department of Justice expects a 5-year wait after conviction before even considering an application. High-profile cases often skip the line, but with public outrage building, could a pardon now trigger a backlash the White House can't afford? The stakes are immense, not just for Diddy, but for the message sent to America. Will the ultimate power to forgive be wielded transparently, in the spirit of justice? Or will it be another episode in the endless reality show of power, wealth, and rivalry? As the trial unfolds, new evidence continues to surface. Testimony from former assistants and accusers has given jurors a window into a world of manipulation, fear, and emotional trauma. Key defense strategies have centered around undermining credibility, highlighting old social media posts, inconsistencies, and attempts at settlement. The financial pressure is mounting. Already, legal experts see the defense's $15 million price tag as a sign that this is a battle for more than freedom. It's about legacy and the future of an entire industry's reputation. So as we head into the heart of the trial, the question grows louder. When celebrity, politics, and justice intersect, who really decides the outcome? And if the power to overturn a conviction rests in the hands of one person, what does that mean for everyone else hoping for real justice? Stay with us, because on the other side of this story, we'll dig even deeper. What would a pardon actually mean for Diddy's future, finances, and legacy? How could it reshape the public's trust in the legal system? And what does it mean for the next wave of high-profile legal showdowns? The answers may surprise you. Now, as Diddy stands at the center of a legal and cultural firestorm, heads are turned not only toward the courthouse, the entire nation is squinting at the White House asking, what happens next? The question isn't just about one man, it's about the system, who bends it, who breaks it, and who pays the price. Let's look at the possible crossroads awaiting Diddy and, maybe even more importantly, America's sense of justice. If Diddy is convicted on federal charges, the consequences are staggering. Legal experts say he could face years, even decades behind bars. Asset forfeiture would follow. His fortune, now nearly halved to $400 million since the allegations surfaced, could take a further nosedive. The Diddy brand that once graced vodka bottles, fashion runways, and the Billboard charts would be replaced by court transcripts, mugshots, and headlines that refuse to fade. Niyama Ramani, a former federal prosecutor, sums it up. Combs' legal team is prepared to spend whatever it takes, but public opinion has a price too, and you can't pay it away. But let's imagine the alternate ending. Suppose Diddy's all-star team of defense attorneys, each with million-dollar retainers, managed to sow enough doubt, challenge enough evidence, and persuade a jury to acquit. Or perhaps new evidence emerges, turning the case on its head. In that scenario, Diddy may walk free, but the cloud of suspicion, the 70-plus civil lawsuits, and the gaze of a public now skeptical of redemption wouldn't simply vanish. There are wounds that only time or a presidential signature can close. Then comes the wild card, the presidential pardon. Historically reserved for extraordinary circumstances or clear miscarriages of justice, the pardon has become, in recent years, a lightning rod for controversy. President Trump, advised by the likes of Alice Marie Johnson and influenced by pop culture titans like Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, has shown a willingness to flex this power in ways that delight some and outrage others. NBA YoungBoy, the Chrisleys, even a reputed gang leader, Trump's pardons have repeatedly made headlines. But would a Diddy pardon be a step too far? This is where politics, never far from art and justice, takes the stage. 50 Cent's taunting Instagram posts made it clear, loyalty and personal history matter. Donald doesn't take well to disrespect and doesn't forget who chooses to go against him. The message? Presidential mercy can be personal, and the past is never really past in the halls of power. If Trump or any future president decides to grant Diddy a pardon, it would trigger outrage in some corners, relief in others, and a tidal wave of questions everywhere. What precedent would that set for future cases? Does it send a message that money and connections can still buy a second chance, even in the face of the gravest allegations? Or could it signal a new chapter in how celebrities, power, and the law intersect? There's another complication, the pardon process itself. Many don't realize a federal pardon can only be applied for 5 years after conviction. There are exceptions. Presidents have the raw constitutional power to sidestep that, but doing so guarantees fireworks. The Department of Justice weighs in, reviews the case, and often advises caution. Yet, as we've seen, presidents can, and sometimes do, act unilaterally. The result? Pardons that can unite or divide a nation. On the other hand, a conviction on state charges, often a parallel threat in complex, high-profile cases, would render a presidential pardon useless. State law is a different battlefield. Presidential power stops at the federal line. That means even if Diddy were somehow pardoned at the federal level, New York prosecutors or others could continue to pursue justice. And what about victims? Advocates warn that a high-profile pardon, especially one perceived as politically motivated, risks re-traumatizing survivors and undermining public confidence in the system. Alice Marie Johnson, who herself benefited from clemency and now advises others, says, "A pardon is never just a piece of paper. It's a message to the person, the victims, and to everyone watching." But from a broader lens, what does it mean for regular people? Every time a president makes an unusual or controversial pardon, the lines between justice and power seem to blur. The risk? Average Americans start to believe the system is rigged for the rich, the famous, and the well-connected. Public trust, already eroded by years of scandal and partisanship, can crumble even further, making jurors more cynical, witnesses less likely to come forward, and the next big trial even more divisive. Yet there is an unexpected benefit. Each of these moments, however infuriating or sensational, shines a harsh light on gaps and injustices in the system. Without the national spotlight, would everyday people know about the 5-year waiting period for a pardon? Or that a pardon restores certain civil rights but doesn't erase the conviction? Or that the real power of clemency is, as critics argue, a last check on judicial excess, but also a loophole for the privileged? Whether through outrage or debate, high-profile cases push the country to ask questions that matter. Who gets a second chance? Do the rules apply equally? When the system is under a microscope, it's forced to justify itself, or, sometimes, change. The Diddy saga, for all its celebrity and spectacle, is also a chance for activists, lawmakers, and ordinary citizens to demand more transparency and fairness, from the courts, from presidents, and from those who shape the narrative. So, what's the practical takeaway for you, the viewer? It's not about picking a side in the Diddy drama. It's understanding that real change starts with vigilance. First, stay informed. High-profile headlines are just the surface. Dig deeper. Look at how power works, not just in music or politics, but in your own city, your own workplace. Understand the pardon process. Know who holds that power and how it works. Presidential discretion is immense, but it's not absolute. Second, don't underestimate the power of public pressure. Social media campaigns, petitions, and community organizing have all changed the course of past clemency cases. If you care about justice, your voice matters, especially when the stakes are high and the cameras are rolling. Third, if you or someone you know is ever touched by the justice system, remember, legal processes are long, expensive, and often deeply unfair, especially for those without resources. The spectacle around celebrity cases can obscure the struggles of millions of ordinary people who never make the news, people whose names will never trend, but who face the brunt of a flawed system every day. And finally, remember that one man's pardon is never just about him. It's about the country, its values, and its future. As the Diddy case continues to unfold, we may be on the edge of a precedent. A pardon would mean, at least on paper, a restoration of Diddy's rights. But would it restore his reputation? Would it heal his victims? Would it make America believe in justice again? That, perhaps, is the central question. Some say no amount of legal maneuvering or presidential ink can erase the pain, the damage, or the doubt. Others argue that mercy, even when unpopular, is a hallmark of a just society. The truth, as ever, lies somewhere in the tension between principle and power. So, can public trust survive a Diddy pardon? It would take a miracle of transparency, accountability, and national soul-searching for the answer to be yes. At this crossroads, every decision, every tweet, every headline, every signature carries weight far beyond one celebrity's fate. Here's the secret fact most people don't realize. While the spectacle of celebrity justice grabs our attention, it secretly reveals the playbook of how power works in America. Every high-profile pardon exposes not just the person at the center, but the machinery that makes these decisions possible. If you want a fairer system, learn how it works, so you can work to change it. What do you think? Should presidential pardons be used in cases like this? Can the system be fixed, or is it fundamentally broken? Let's get the conversation started. Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe.